The South China Sea is a crucible for the growing rivalry between China and the United States. China claims almost the entire area and continues to build military bases on disputed islands. The U.S. sends its warships through the waters, insisting on freedom of navigation. With tensions rising and the Trump administration withdrawing from multilateral commitments, Indonesia is stepping up its own defense. Jakarta is staging a major series of naval drills involving 38 countries. The exercises are centered around the island of Bali. DW's Asia-Pacific Bureau Chief Georg Matthes is there and sent us this report.
This is Indonesian soft power in full swing. While the Trump administration pulls back from multilateralism, Indonesia is embracing it. No fewer than 38 nations were invited to the so-called Multilateral Naval Exercise Komodo, including rival naval forces like China, Russia and the United States. The focus of the week-long event in Bali, maritime security and humanitarian assistance, but also thorny issues like the disputed South China Sea.
Our hope is to ease tensions in the South China Sea by shifting the conversation towards humanitarian issues. Humanity should come before conflict. We want to raise global awareness that any future conflict in the South China Sea would have serious consequences for the global economy.
The Indo-Pacific region has been seeing a growing military buildup in recent times, and the South China Sea is one of the biggest flashpoints. Several countries have rival claims in those waters, which are rich in natural resources and fish. But China claims almost the entire area as its own, which is home to several Indonesian islands. No surprise then that Indonesia's new government has made higher defense spending and the modernization of its military top priorities.
Indonesia's message is loud and clear. The Natuna Islands are its territory, no ifs, ands or buts. But while Jakarta defends its waters, it is still steering clear of a direct showdown with China.
Indonesia's soft diplomacy approach focuses on finding common ground at events like this one and trying to avoid getting drawn into the power rivalry between China and the United States. On the South China Sea, however, Indonesia and the US are very much on the same page.
The South China Sea is not an area that is vacuums of international law. It is not the vacuum of regional arrangement. It is not the vacuum of bilateral treaties. It's a place where it has a very substantive, detailed legal element of it. And we all need to use all of these legal instruments as a tool.
A tool to balance different interpretations of the law. Experts say Indonesia's approach of avoiding direct confrontation might just be the right move when dealing with its powerful neighbor China. But Jakarta should also prepare for a scenario in which the US reduces its overseas commitments, giving Beijing the room to tighten its grip on the South China Sea.
China would definitely take advantage of such a situation, or maybe it already has a plan in place. However, China must understand that if it pushes too far, countries in the region will start to feel uneasy. They'll begin asking, what does China want? Why are they acting this way? And why are they being so aggressive?
Indonesia is trying to convince China that it will need partners, and that's exactly what this event is about. Working together and sharing experiences, like releasing baby turtles into the sea. A small but symbolic gesture that embodies Indonesia's position that the high seas belong to everyone.
And DW's Georg Matthes, who filed that report, joins us now from Bali, where these naval exercises are taking place. Georg, the U.S. is participating together with Russia and China in these exercises. That seems rather odd, doesn't it, given geopolitical tensions?
First of all, I would say, Terry, that amongst the soldiers who are represented here, those many nations, there's a lot of common ground. There were a number of presentations in the meetings, for instance, on AI warfare, cyber warfare, but also illegal fishing in the South China Sea. And that's where all nations represented here have a common enemy. Of course, when it comes to diving together, it's an event that happened. You don't have a buddy system between the United States and Russia, but you do have parades here where you had Russia marching together with European nations, and it is this kind of energy or this atmosphere of a mutual collegial atmosphere that Indonesia hopes to inspire, and thereby hopes that on the sideline of the events maybe there will be some back-channel diplomacy happening.
Now, in your report, you mentioned the power rivalry between China and the U.S. in that region. Is there pressure for the host country, Indonesia, to pick a side in that rivalry?
Well, Indonesians are very careful what they say on this question here, because China clearly is the biggest investor in this country, and that rings true for many Southeast Asian nations. For instance, Vietnam just enforced and enlarged its installations on disputed islands in the South China Sea, while at the same time making a $1 million deal on new train tracks to China. So that is a common scenario you have. On the other hand, Indonesia was certainly not forced to join the Organization of Emerging Economies, BRICS, but that was something they voluntarily did. So there's no force from China on that front. On the other side, you have the United States here, which are a clear ally when it comes to the South China Sea, as I pointed out in the report, and also for ASEAN members, the Organization of Southeast Asian Nations here. And it was the American representative on the meeting here who encouraged the Southeast Asian nations within ASEAN to continue to support the free passage in the South China Sea here.
Your report also describes these exercises in Indonesia with 38 nations as soft power in full swing. Is it working, Georg, from an Indonesian perspective?
I mean, Indonesians are very fond of the idea not to take sides. And I think that works as long as you are not forced to take sides. And that's the situation Indonesia is in right now. If you look at the South China Sea, there's no direct threat to the Indonesian territory. It's still a theoretical threat. There is the Philippines, the situation is a little bit different, but still we're in an emerging situation. As one of the delegates here pointed out, we're moving into a bipolar world. And the Indonesian side told me that what they hope to achieve with a forum like this is that maybe countries also find other partners, look into other directions. And as things change, that might change the situation. So they say it's not a static situation that you move into with old foes that will always stay the same. So maybe India will become a more important player. And that is the idea, that you talk together, you meet together, and you explore potentially more common ground. And so I think, yes, that's a good idea.
Georg, thank you very much. That was Georg Matthes, DW's Asia Pacific Bureau Chief, talking to us from Bali.